Hello everybody, I'm Michael Allen and welcome to the Michael Allen Studio. This is a very exciting day for me because this is the first ever Michael Allen studio video that we've shot here in the home studio, and it's going to be a cracker because we're running through the most recent production of mine, which is a remix for the legendary Maor Levi, and in collaboration with Metapop and Anjuna Beats, they put a remix competition together for his most recent single called Am I Dreaming? The original track from Maor Levi is an absolute banger. I guess it's part of the modern groove-driven variant of trance. But the great thing about Maor Levi's productions, certainly of the last few years, is that even though it is as tough as nails, he doesn't leave any of the melody on the table. It's all there, and he's got a real Midas touch for that sort of thing. With my remix, I wanted to take things in a slightly different direction, and I think that's what makes a good remix, is where you have some of the best elements, but you really make an original production, something that's your own. I slowed things down a little bit. I borrowed a few elements from techno, electro, and built a modern chassis around that. But the most important element, of course, is still there. The melody is all there. It's a completely original melody, my own strings, my own motifs, all that kind of thing, and then a tough as nails drop as well. So without further ado, let's jump into the project itself. I'm going to take you through some of the most important elements and show you how I put it together. So here we are, welcome to the FL Studio project for my remix for Am I Dreaming? As you can see, things are a bit of a mess. You can't really fit everything on one page. Well, maybe you could if I did, spend the time grouping everything together, but as it stands, this is where it all makes sense to me because I've really only just finished producing it. So today, rather than going through every single element of the production, I want to focus on a few key elements, and we're going to look at the project in sort of 16 bar lots. Let's have a listen to the main drop and get a bit of a feel for the chassis as it is. So as you can hear, it is a pretty heavy track. It's got some real techno influences with the percussion, particularly the kick. I did a large sort of reverbed, high-passed kick, which is super popular in genres like techno. The obvious other thing is the bass line, which sort of stands right out. That is made up of a few different serum layers, but the real champion of the layers is this top re-space here, which is comprised of just one serum, something that I actually built from scratch following a Maor Levi tutorial, which was posted to his Facebook. So this is a super thick re-space with loads of modulation. To give you an idea about how that sort of sounds, there's loads of portamento on it, loads of processing happening, loads of portamento gliding between the notes, so it just sounds super thick. And of course, I've got plenty of reverb and things happening through Ascend to give that kind of massive tail without being destructive to the bassline sound itself. Moving to our next section, we have the introduction of all of our percussion. So nothing crazy going on with the percussion. The percussion is, it's heavily influenced by house music. Where it sort of sits in the mix though, and I think it's probably important to mention, is the bass line is right dead center. Despite having all that sort of modulation and flavor, I've tried to crop it in so that the percussion can be panned and really give strong 3D elements and 3D effects to the percussion. And I really wanted to set that free and loose in that way. So there's nothing crazy about it, just a house groove. I'll isolate it out now for you so you can really hear it on its own. So yeah, really straightforward, really simple. That's the groove. As we move to our middle drop, this is where things start to progress a little bit. So we start to introduce all of our main melodic elements. The key things that I loved the most in Maor Levi's remix, particularly with the stems as they were isolated, were the vocal chops and his strings, which are super cinematic. So I'll give you a listen to both of those as they are isolated now. Just super unique, super sexy, loads of melody, and you know, you can just do so much with that. The next element that I loved was the strings, which sound a little bit like this. So crispy, crunchy, lots of top end action there, and I've really pushed that to the top so that it sits in the mix clearly. You can hear the crinkling sounds of the strings at that sort of top end register. Now, the last thing to look out for in this next section we're going to listen to is my own motif. So this is really the hero of my story, the hero of my track, and it's in the form of a simple sort of trance pluck. I've done a lot of work on the processing for the pluck. It runs through some saturation and obviously EQs and loads of different other effects. But at its heart, it's a very simple motif riff, and it sounds something like this. Crazy, right? Really, really simple, but it actually serves as the motif for the track going forward. So once it's introduced, it then is used in repetition throughout. So let's have a listen to all of those elements together and sort of filtering through in this next middle section. So that brings us neatly to where we start to wind things backwards for a bit of a break. And this is where I started to lean into an idea that I'd been toying with this track. Being that it's called Am I Dreaming, my favourite movie about dreaming is, of course, Christopher Nolan's Inception. And I wanted to make the breakdown feel like you're really asking the question, am I dreaming? The way I wanted to achieve that from a sound design perspective was through the use of time-based granular effects. There's a really great plugin by Output called Portal, which will allow you to do exactly that. And this particular preset is called the Great Slower Downer. And what it'll do is, by using granular synthesis, take a sample that you're feeding through it and essentially process it and make it sound like it's slowing down gradually. So I applied that effect to the main motif pluck here as we're drifting towards the breakdown, and you'll notice that the pluck itself, it feels like it's almost being pulled apart. So the structure of the original plucks is being ripped into smaller segments and then replayed in a faster but also slower sort of format. So I'll let you listen to that now. So as you can see, it sort of becomes decimated. It becomes a shadow of its former self. And the idea was to create a sense of things slowing down and becoming more dreamlike. if that makes sense. And as we progress now to the main break for the track, I really wanted to expand upon the question, am I dreaming? So the original vocal sample of Am I Dreaming, which is from the Maor Levi track, is repeated, filtered through, and I've added a heartbeat, a real heartbeat sample to the main break, which sort of slowly filters in, because I felt that sort of created the atmosphere, the kind of reinforces the question, am I dreaming? Sometimes when you're dreaming, you don't know whether you're dreaming. Sometimes you don't know whether it's a nightmare. And, you know, the heart beating out of your chest, that's what I wanted it to feel like. In the background, that motif is still there with the time stretching elements, and we're just sort of moving towards a peak in the breakdown through this section. And now we reach the breakdown peak. This is really probably the most important part of the whole track, if you ask any trance fan. This is where we throw our hands in the air and we're introduced to, I guess, what the whole story is all about. I completely remade a melody from the ground up here. So I wanted it to be my own progression and my own feeling that sort of stood out. I didn't want it to feel like Maor Levi's track already did, and I felt like if I'd stuck to the exact same melody, then I would have struggled to get past what the original was all about. So let's just have a listen to it, and then I'll break down a couple of layers for you. So yeah, super dreamy, super melodic, hands in the air, classic trance style, and it's really comprised of just a few simple layers. The first of which is this I've called Anjuna pad, which is really just a simple pad which opens up at different times over the automation. If you'd like me to put together a tutorial on the Anjuna pad that you've just heard, or any other sound that you hear in the project today, make sure you drop me a comment down below, get subscribed, hit the bell notification for any time we release new content, because there is more coming. Obviously the trance motif, that the key element of the track is there. That's playing over the breakdown as it opens up. And we also have, of course, Maor Levi's signature. The strings are there, the respace is there, all the key elements that you'd expect to find, and some really nice filtered breakbeat percussion as well, sort of crunching over the top. So I built that to be really filtered out and bit crushed, and just really just as a matter of following through, you know, with a bit of rhythm. Now the whole next section is all about the build towards the main drop, and yeah, I want to talk about something that's been guiding my music production for quite some time now. It's this idea of making beautiful, progressive, melodic music with razor sharp teeth. And what I mean by that is to try and have an element to the track that is equal parts light and equal parts shade. So the drop being as tough as nails, but also something completely different. Got to lean into that idea of being progressive. I'm so past the idea of a track being over by the middle breakdown. There needs to be a reason why you continue to listen and get excited for what comes next. And I've tried to capture that in this track and the build by introducing a completely new element to the main drop. Something that hasn't been heard anywhere else in the track yet, but still fits the context of what you've already heard. So rather than playing you the build up, I'll give you the last few bars and then show you what the drop sounds like. So it's a big drop. It's supposed to be heavy, it's supposed to be full on. It moves that sort of, really groovy, almost triplet style bass line from the introduction into a straight offbeat bass, which, gels really closely to the techno style kicks. It's supposed to be big, it's supposed to be massive. And I can imagine it in a club just being huge. Then it's all about rebuilding the other melodic elements that we've already heard and sort of bringing them back through. So we've really reached a banging peak there, and to close it out, there really is only one thing we can do. As any trance head will tell you, it's about reintroducing that melody for one final celebration. I really feel like one of the most underappreciated elements of modern music today is silence, and I always try and have a couple of sections in my tracks to try and bring that to the fore. I'll try and scrub out a lot of the top end and kind of just get you to lean into the melody in its most raw format. And I want you to feel like you can take a deep breath, even if you're in a club, energized environment like that. So that's what it's all about. This is what it sounds like. So there we have it. That's my remix of Maor Levi's Am I Dreaming? I just want to say thank you to Metapop for the opportunity to remix it. Of course, Anjuna Beats and the main man, Maor Levi. What an original. Thank you for sending the stems. It's been, such a pleasure to work on them. I really hope you've enjoyed the breakdown run through that we've done today and the format it's been presented in. Of course, we weren't able to touch on so many different elements here today. And if there's anything that stands out to you that you'd like to know, make sure you drop me a comment. I will always be more than happy to help out. We've got loads more content on the way. We've got 4K video sets, we've got new music, and of course, more run-throughs and informal content like what we've done today. So please make sure you get subscribed for that. Until then, it's been great knowing you. Thanks for your time. I've been Michael Allen, and until next time, we'll see you then.